I don't wear hats often in these videos, but I thought I'd make a special exception because someone's capping Geoff. So I thought I'd wear my cap. It has nothing to do with the fact that my hair's really greasy, I'm about to go to the gym, and I didn't feel like showering. Come on, get real. It's all about the theme of the video. Anyway, today, ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about the Game Awards. It's a little bit more than a week away as we're currently recording this video, and there's been a lot of differing conversations surrounding it. There's some excitement, specifically in the Xbox camp, because it's been reported that Xbox will have a presence here at the show. There's a lot of people anticipating big announcements, just given rumors now starting to swirl. But at the same time, the conversation has been really negative surrounding the Game Awards because in a certain sense, it just feels like a laughingstock of a show, given how little understanding there is of what a genre in gaming is, from fighting to RPGs to indie. It's just been an ongoing conversation, and given how long the show's been alive for, it's pretty embarrassing that we're here at this point now trying to understand certain genres properly, especially when the people voting work in video games. Buckle up, because I got much to say, but first, before anything else, a quick word from today's sponsor. The following video is brought to you by Brilliant.org. Brilliant is the best way to learn math, data science, and computer science interactively. I have been trying my hand yet again at computer science to see if I can continue to improve at it, and I have to say this is where Brilliant really shines. It's why they've been a partner of the channel for a long while now, because Brilliant is fun and interactive with thousands of lessons from basics to advanced topics, but also new lessons also being added every month. But more importantly, I think, is that whatever your skill level may be, like for me, when it comes to computer science, kind of low, Brilliant customizes content to fit your needs and lets you solve at your own pace. And it's not afraid to help you along. And I think that's where it's at its strongest. I'm not afraid to admit that I'm not the best at computer science. And so I think it's a testament to Brilliant's quality that they're able to help walk you through this stuff. But again, if you're not looking for computer science, there's data science, there's math, there's tons of ways to learn here on this platform. So why don't you try everything Brilliant has to offer free for a full 30 days? All you have to do is visit brilliant.org/MrMattyPlays or click on the link in the description. The first 200 of you will get 20% off Brilliant's annual premium subscription. So this video isn't just whiny, complaining, negative. I do have a couple of positive changes I want to point out. First and foremost is going to be the world premiere changes. So Geoff says, actually, you're going to see this year, we often put up those cards, world premiere. We're kind of moving away from that just because everything's kind of, is it a first look? Is it an announcement, etc.? So we just treat it as great game content, which I think is good for the moment-to-moment gauging of expectations, because you'll usually get this Geoff Keighley monologue and then you'll see world premiere, and then it's like, oh, it's the latest update for Fortnite. Is that really a world premiere? I didn't overthink it too much at this point. I thought it was kind of a running gag, but I'm happy that they're making the adjustment there. I think more importantly, though, is the security of the event. After 2 stage crashers in the last 2 Keighley-based events, whether it be opening night live with a dude talking about GTA 6, or of course the really popular one where Elden Ring was winning Game of the Year, and we talked about Bill Clinton. Yeah, that was 2 big moments in a row during these respective shows that took over anything else that happened during the shows. And if you're Geoff and the team and you're putting all this time and money and effort into it, yeah, you probably don't want that as an optical point of view. And then naturally there's the safety of the people on stage, that they don't have to worry something's going to happen to them. So Geoff says in response to that yeah, we are making changes. We don't want to talk about that stuff too publicly just because it's security. And naturally you want to keep that information close to the vest. Hopefully everything goes well this year and that they've really beefed up and invested in security, because it's not something you want to play with when you've had 2 successful stage crashes. But what I want to really get into with the meat of this video is this whole indie game conversation that's going on. One of the reasons is I'm an indie game dev myself, so I have some thoughts on it personally. I also want to talk about the proper understanding of particular genres in gaming or categories in the Game Awards, and offer a potential solution, because I know that Geoff, for all the faults people like to list about him, is very open to feedback. So I thought maybe they come across this video, maybe it's helpful in some way, shape, or form. I'm not in the jury, I'm not doing any voting, so maybe they just have this spark from this video or they ignore it. I don't know, just feedback's gonna be out there so we can all discuss. This begins with an article from Video Game Chronicle titled "Keighley Weighs In on Debate Over Dave the Diver Qualifying for Best Indie Game." The game's nomination has sparked debate over what makes an indie game, because despite having the conventional lo-fi appearance that some indie games have, its developer, Mint Rocket, is a small team within Nexon, a South Korean company that made $1.8 billion in revenue in 2021 alone. And so naturally, the question is, all right, Dave the Diver looks, I put in quotes, indie, just given the pixel art nature of the game, but it's not necessarily in this independent sliver of the industry where it's high risk. A real small team is shooting above their pay grade, trying to make something special here. And apparently Dave the Diver is amazing. We're not trying to take away from games here, just properly identify them. Does it really qualify? We're going to get into Geoff's response first and foremost, where he says, look, it's a great question. Independent can mean different things to different people, and it's sort of a broad term. You can argue, does independent mean the budget of the game? Does independent mean where the source of financing was? Does it mean the team size? Is it the kind of independent spirit of the game, meaning a smaller game that's sort of different? I think everyone has their own opinion about this, and we really defer to our jury of 120 global media outlets who vote on these awards to make that determination of is something independent or not. You know, in other industries, sometimes there are things, I think in the film industry, the budget can't be above this amount of dollars or it's not independent, so I don't know. Some people have said Larian with Baldur's Gate 3, that's an independent game. Kojima Productions with Death Stranding, some people say that's an independent game. And even though it's an independent studio, of course, it's funded by PlayStation. So a lot of my thoughts come from the standpoint of not even as someone who works in the industry and is super frustrated by things, but if you want your show to be taken seriously, let's start off with what Geoff said about how indie games are defined, which is that independent can mean different things to different people, and it's sort of a broad term. No, I don't think it is. And it's up to you and the committee to establish what that is, so then there's a rule set to follow when voting. I don't think anyone's asking for perfection here, but when you have a company that's working within a $1.8 billion giant, I don't think that's necessarily capturing the independent spirit of the game. Now, as a independent game developer myself, right now I lead a team of 9 of us in total, and it's an awesome journey. It's definitely scary because I'm personally bankrolling the entire thing right now. It has been a monumental thing to take on, but I really believe in the idea we have enough that I want to take that kind of risk. But point being is, I think that captures the spirit of independence. A small team with a very small budget trying to do something bigger than a team that small should do to wow and impress people, right? It starts off with that little, I think of like Kurt Cobain making music in his garage. I think of how eBay started in a garage, right? You start very small, independent spirit, and you grow into something bigger. Now, every company has different ambitions of what they want to grow into. We're talking about games and what qualifies them as independent, and I think it's budget and team size being the main determining factors. We have games like No Man's Sky, which were so impressive because they were, quote, indie games. I don't think 3D, 2D, pixel art, what have you, should define indie games, especially with photogrammetry technology just advancing at a staggering rate. Eventually, I think the more common part of indie games will be more 3D style games because the assets will be there and ready to go, where you'll need to hire more artists to make things like pixel art. Each style of visual approach has its own pros and cons, but I don't think that we can just go off knee-jerk, like what happened with Dave the Diver. Games can have that nostalgic approach to art style. I was playing Warhammer 40k Bolt Gun the other night. That has a very much old school Doom approach, but make no mistake, Focus Home Entertainment is publishing that thing. That's not a real rigorous independent spirit. And I don't think with the influx of indie titles we have here that it's really tough to figure out what makes an independent game. We could get into the semantics further, but I think the conversation just carries a bit beyond that, because you look at other categories, best ongoing game, somehow Cyberpunk 2077 got nominated for that. And some people will argue in the defense of that. Oh, well, it's been getting supported for years. Look, I loved Cyberpunk 2077 since day one. You can find the review on my channel, one of the best RPGs of the generation. I had a great experience since day one. That is not a service game. When you see Apex Legends, Final Fantasy XIV, Fortnite, Genshin Impact, all service games nominated here, Cyberpunk was never to be a service game. It was a broken game at launch. They got a lot of patches and a great expansion this year. That is added content. That's not an ongoing game, though, as far as I'm concerned. That should never have sniffed this category, and it's an insult to what I think that Cyberpunk 2077 is. Meanwhile, best RPG, you have the likes of Baldur's Gate 3, Final Fantasy 16, Lies of P, Sea of Stars, and Starfield. I don't know how Final Fantasy 16 cracks this category, and a lot of people are going to take that as a knock to the game, but as far as I'm concerned, Final Fantasy 16 is not an RPG. I think a game like Phantom Liberty would make this list here better, right? Because that is a compelling choice and consequence, build-driven RPG. The expansion completely overhauls entirely alongside patch 2.0 what that game does for your character. And so there's a lot of ways to play it. So to me, why is this primarily action-driven game that's all about DMC-style combat making its way into the RPG category? Again, I get it. There's a minor bit of ability tweaking and a skill system, I put in quotes, where you kill enemies, you get SP, you spend it on things that are automatically going to unlock, etc., etc. I don't think that this game should sniff the RPG category, not because it's bad. I enjoyed some of my time with it, but because it's not an RPG, in my opinion, compared to other games that could have qualified. So somehow we have one game that's not a live service game in ongoing. Somehow we have one game that I don't think is an RPG and more of an action game in best RPG. And then you even can go years back. It's not just an outlier here. Sifu got nominated for best fighting game of the year. And I loved Sifu. I called it one of the best indie games I have played. And that is a game that is not a fighting game. It is not at all a fighting game. But this is the problem. We have a fundamental misunderstanding of what these genres are. And sometimes I could understand the gray area like indie. But there are other examples like the ones I provided here between RPG, ongoing, fighting game. It's like, we just keep missing this. And all it conveys to me as a viewer, I've never voted in this stuff, is there's no description of like, here is what makes a fighting game a fighting game. And I get it. Some of this should be a safe assumption. People should be able to look at Sifu and go, that's not a fighting game. I think it's pretty obvious, but clearly it's not. So we need to define these categories more. I think that's solution one. Start putting out a statement, if it's not there already, on what makes these genres, what makes these categories, and what games could filter into them. Not a list, just types of games that could filter into that list. Meanwhile, your other solution, and this is a more complex one, I think there should be committees representing particular genres within the Game Awards. For example, I would speak to my own strengths here. I'm just going to use myself as an example because I can only speak for myself here, is that put me in the RPG committee, right? I play a lot of games every year, but I don't miss RPGs. I beat every big RPG every year, never miss them because that is my favorite genre, right? And so I think I would be qualified to sit there and vote on, say, that committee. I'm not saying put me in the Game of the Year voting committee or put me in the action game committee, but it's time to start narrowing the focus a bit more so people who know what particular games click and what particular games don't click are voting, and we get a more well-rounded, better represented set of nominees. There's still going to be the snubs. That's not going to erase anything. If you're here trying to help out a snub somewhere, that's still going to occur in competitive years like it did here. But at least we know we're putting our best foot forward. That's what it's all about to me. The best foot forward. Just making sure we're making the right steps. It's not going to be perfect. It's not going to fix every problem. But this amount of negligence, this amount of hand waving, this amount of not understanding what a fighting game is, for example, is unacceptable, I think, for what is the biggest award show we currently have. Even if I've said before, it is marketing. I mean, it still is our biggest existing award show. People don't tune in for DICE as much as they do the Game Awards. And personally, as someone working on what I would consider is an indie game, I personally wouldn't mind getting nominated for any of these categories. I'd like to know what the hell we're punching towards here. Let's get this industry solidified. Let's create standards and proper understanding. Isn't that what growth is all about? That's what I'm failing to understand here. We have a set of leaders who I think are doing nothing more than fattening their pockets more than actually actively moving us forward. I'm not saying go be an activist. I'm just saying let's establish what a genre is so we have a proper friggin' award show. I don't know. I feel like I might be wanting too much here, but just as I think about it more, I'm like, how did we get here? How does this show exist since, what, 2014? And we're still here debating, like, what's an indie game? Like, we had a major boom in 2014 with indie games. I think of the PS Vita and PS4 as like the driving force there. ID at Xbox today is thriving. How do we not know exactly what an indie game is? Do they have to go through those programs? Again, I could go on. I apologize if this video is a little whiny, but I feel like it has to be said. I feel like we need to get these understandings right because everyone in the industry who's working here talks about, you know, we'll never be taken seriously. We've got to take ourselves more seriously and make advancements. Here's a perfect, easy fix right here. Start establishing what genres are. That's all I got for you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in. Looking forward to hearing your thoughts down below. Be sure to fire away. Other than that, take excellent care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time around. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.